You're listening to Gary Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm Gary Lutz. By the time you see this, it will be March 24th, 2020. Our good friend Gary Wagner is with us now. And, well, gold has been taking a hit lately, and you can find Gary's work over at thegoldforecast.com. So, Gary, why is the price of gold and correspondingly silver, why are they going down?
First of all, a pleasure to be here once again with you. I mean, it's been we've been doing this for years, and we've watched markets go through ebbs and flows. To answer your question directly, in terms of gold, it is probably 90% based on a dollar strength, because you did have treasury yields go down, which is what the gold market was waiting for. In the case of silver, though, that's down about 2.5%, far exceeding the rise in gold. So it seems as though they are liquidating silver.
All right. And is this strictly a currency play? Because by all rights, the dollar should be sinking. We got record deficits. I mean, you know, we got a world of problems out there, Gary, with no solutions other than to raise taxes and start implementing the Green New Deal, because it's such a great idea. And you too should be driving an electric skateboard on your commute to work.
That's right. That's right. I prefer a Tesla, but electric skateboard will work also.
Yeah, well, we've got them in, you know what they did. The company is real sneaky and smart. They just pick a city and, you know, the scooter, it's actually a scooter, and it'll go 12 miles an hour, fast enough to kill somebody.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome.
That's the test. If it's going fast enough to kill someone, then the speed is good. And you use your credit card and it charges you by the mile, and then you just leave it there. You're supposed to put it in a rack, but people just leave them in the middle of everywhere. The first place it opened was in Austin, Texas, that I know of. My son was really enraged about it. Now it's all over Florida. And, you know, the combination of intoxicated spring breakers with electric scooters, I mean, is really the very essence of the Green New Deal, isn't it?
Well, it's a recipe for danger, that I can say that. But in terms of where gold has been trading, we did hit a low back at the end of last month at around 1685. From there, we saw it pop back up. It's currently trading at 1725, but it was as high as 42 to 54 just a few days ago. You've got a lot of cross currents that, to me, make gold pricing like a salmon swimming upstream, because 2 weeks ago and at the end of last week, the major concern was that yields were rising in treasury notes and dollar was strengthening. And so those two collectively put some pressure on it. Then yesterday, we had a weak dollar, treasury notes go down, but you had U.S. equities moving to the upside. So they cited the fact that it was a risk-on move and it was a rebalancing of a portfolio. It seems that gold can't get out of its own way, in that regardless of the news, it is interpreted as bearish for the precious yellow metal.
Mm-hmm. And what does that tell us for the future?
Well, one bank came out yesterday and they're calling for gold to go to 1675 by the end of the year. I can tell you that short term, we are still in a technical basis in a bearish mode. Current pricing is under not only the 50, 100, but the 200-day moving average. We all know what that means when a market is trading below its 200-day moving average. At the same time, the interim or long term, and I don't know which it is, but when you consider that we put, $4 trillion worth of national debt we added with the aid packages last year, an additional 1.9 trillion. So now we're up to what, about 6. And now they're proposing an additional 3 trillion for a infrastructure bill coupled with a green solution bill, so to speak. And they're also trying to make the underserved communities have some kind of an economic revival. And so what we're seeing is a series of events that are occurring that are all collectively moving gold down. I thought gold was holding up rather well up until today. Today, I mean, we do have a sizable sell-off, but we've seen it move up from 1680 up to, the low 1700s and as high as about 1750. This recent move has just been the last 2 days.
Yeah. So how much stock can we put in a short-term move that, we're talking a couple of days here? It did hit its low, so it's rebounded. Now it's bouncing back lower. And is it going to break its prior low?
That's a good question. Right now, I think that there's good support at 1700. In fact, I did an interview with one of the larger gold outlets, Miles Franklin, yesterday, and he asked me about silver and gold. His thing is that he hears that silver is going to take off if it goes past 30. And I said that from what we're looking at right now, we could see some pressure in both gold and silver. And if you're an investor buying physical silver, it is a marvelous opportunity, because even if it goes to 1680, and that's the number that these banks are calling for, and that's right around the low that we hit, it allows you to buy it at a much better price than you have been in quite some time. The other thing that we have to realize is we entered a multi-month correction. Began in August when gold hit 2,088, and it trailed it all the way down a tremendous amount. I believe, memory serves me correctly, right around 1,500. And then started to move back up slowly. But this move here, at first, this move here really tells me that there's still weakness in the market.
Mm-hmm. Still weakness. And at the same time, we've been watching Bitcoin head for the hills here. There's just no end in sight to its appreciation. And it makes one ask the question, well, is gold just old-fashioned and no longer relevant?
Well, I think that they're two separate asset classes, and you're absolutely correct. It's a valid point. I mean, Bitcoin ran up to, I think, about 58,000, but it hit a top there. And over the last, say, week, we've seen it come down considerably. It is down today. My son Joseph does our Bitcoin report. For those that are interested in Bitcoin, you can go to thegoldforecast.com and click on the Bitcoin button. But he actually went short when it hit those highs. He believes that worst case scenario, about 45,000 is where it will head, and then it will move back up. Long term, though, I'm incredibly impressed with what we saw. I'm still baffled how an asset that really has no intrinsic value has done so well. But the key is it's being accepted by the large corporations. You started with Elon Musk putting 1.5 billion. You had Stripe putting in a sizable investment. You've got PayPal now using it to trade with. So long term, we could see it move much higher.
Yeah, that's if it's not banned. And I'm not convinced. Nobody has given me the argument why it can't be banned.
Well, I'll tell you this, whether they ban it or not, my belief is, and this differs from Joseph, is that the accepted currency, cryptocurrency is here to stay, first of all, unquestionably. I can't tell you when, but there will be a point in our lives when we no longer carry money, or even that it's printed. It will become an obsolete way to do barters and transactions. The question is, which digital currency will really take the place of a regular currency? My sense is it's got to be a government currency.
Yeah, well, it's got to be a government currency, because what government's going to accept a private currency? The thing we had to that was in Hong Kong, where the two banks or three banks, HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, they actually issued the Hong Kong dollar. But but they were controlled very tightly, from what I understand, and I don't know all the mechanics of it, by the Hong Kong authorities. And now, now it's a Chi-Com satellite, so none of it really matters.
Right.
So, but that's the only advanced economy that I'm aware of that actually had private banks issuing banknotes.
Well, China, I believe China is very close to releasing their crypto or digital currency. And of course, that will have more than safeguards in terms of following the money. The whole idea behind Bitcoin is it is blockchain technology that is amazing. It is a decentralized way to do an accounting. It allows for micro exchanges for third world countries. It allows for the quick transaction at very low fees. However, Bitcoin itself, the code within it, is fairly cumbersome. So it takes a while to process a transaction. And there's other cryptocurrencies, and there's also new methodologies to make these cryptocurrencies a lot more efficient and use less energy. And so will Bitcoin, it's already become the Kleenex or Xerox or the name brand, so to speak, but it doesn't mean that they'll hold that place.
Yeah, Xerox is now a division of a Japanese company, I think. And
how many shares of Kodak did we hold on to?
Yeah.
There was a company that did not change as cameras went digital, and just recently kind of did a pivot 10 years too late. It's not that blockchain is cumbersome. It is certainly the most widely used. I believe that the market cap has broken $1 trillion right now. And not only that, it is traded on the futures exchange. What we do here is mostly futures. And my son Joseph's specialty, and he's been doing this for about 10 years, is only looking at the cryptocurrencies that trade on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Because the one thing is that we need more than anything else, in my opinion, is regulation. You have to have safeguards. You have to know that having an exchange or the SEC regulate a cryptocurrency is they guarantee performance. That's what an exchange does. That's why they require a certain margin. They make sure that margin's there so that the losers have money to pay the winners. When you deal with some of the cash markets, it's not that they're not fair or ethical, but there's room for all kinds of movement. And then there's Grayscale. And Grayscale has such a high a charge in terms of their maintenance charge that it really doesn't effectively represent Bitcoin itself. So will Bitcoin remain the number one? I can't tell you, but I can tell you right now it holds that number one spot. My sense is it will be a US cryptocurrency or a Chinese cryptocurrency that becomes the dominant currency of the world.
Yeah, a government-controlled currency. I think we both agree.
It has to be.
Because it has to be independent, because then that's one of the key ways that they use to control you is through the currency. If they can't do that, then they've lost a major degree of power over you. Witness the European Union, where those countries, however many, 23 countries, have made a decision not to issue their own currency, to issue the euro, which, as someone once said, is backed by no one and basically has nothing behind it.
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Today's show is brought to you by GR Silver Mining, ticker symbol TSX, GRSL, OTC, GRSLF, and their website at grsilvermining.com. The company is extremely well capitalized, currently has a resource of 40 million ounces of silver, and is looking to triple that number in just the next year alone. Its management team is first rate, headed up by Marcio Fonseca, a geologist with vast experience in mining operations and the financial sector as well. With all this going for it, and with silver trading over $25 the ounce, there's no telling how high GR Silver Mining will go. So go to grsilvermining.com to stay up to date on the latest developments and get on their notification list today.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Well, it's kind of like fiat squared. I mean, it's fiat to the 10th power. At least with the United States dollar, it is backed by the faith that you have in our government to honor it. And we are a powerhouse. We are still, at least for now, the largest economy in the world. That probably will change in 5 years. But so even though it's a fiat currency, it's backed by a pretty powerful entity. And so that to me is important. But again, once we came off the gold standard, everything changed. And of course, it began really in 33 when they confiscated all the gold from all the Americans, which is how they funded their infrastructure work. And then, of course, Nixon put the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, when he broke away from what was called Bretton Woods, because after World War II, they had an agreement in which, in terms of gold, any country could bring US dollars in and they would exchange it for gold. And Nixon ended that. And so at that point, that's when we had true paper money. And the thing about it is to me, this is a untested experiment in terms of the Keynesian economy, where we can spend whatever we want, whether or not we have the backing to do that. If you think about the old days when there were kings and feudal lords, you basically, if you wanted to pay your soldiers, you dug into your box of coins or your storehouse, and you paid them. When you ran out, you simply went and pillaged another country, took their money and used it, but you couldn't issue IOUs, so to speak. And that has changed. And when you think about the history of mankind, the history of money, it's a very recent change. I mean, we're talking about under 100 years, about 50 years, because Nixon disavowed it in 73. And so we're really in untested waters. I mean, we're going to add $9 trillion to the US debt. Now, they're saying, well, we're going to raise taxes to kind of cover part of it, but you're going to get a lot of pushback from the Republicans on that, and you need about 10 votes for that to pass. So I think that's going to be difficult. But the spending right now, and I'm not saying it wasn't needed, but we faced one of the worst economic scenarios because of the pandemic in history, maybe since the Spanish flu. And so there has been a real need for stimulus, but is the money that they're allocating going to the right places and things of that nature? And the thing is, when you accumulate this kind of debt and keep a monetary policy that's buying $120 billion worth of assets per month, keeping interest rates artificially between 0.25% Fed funds rate, it brings up some interesting problems or scenarios. First, how can they raise interest rates to any great degree when our national debt has increased to such a level that, a 3 or 4% interest rate would really kill the United States in being able to service that debt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a big deal. And, as they say, it's a big excrement sandwich, and we're all going to have to take a bite of it at some point. But modern monetary theory for the time being, and it has been in the last administration, is alive and well and flourishing in America. And the question is, it's being supported by the entire world. How much longer is the entire world going to pay for our experiment with modern monetary theory?
And that's a definitely an unknown. As I said, it's experimental in my eyes, because when you consider that money's been around for thousands of years, before that was a true bartering exchange, a cow for a goat. But the key was you got something of substance for something of substance and exchange it. The first coins minted, of course, were gold and silver. Gold and silver have always had intrinsic value to it, behind it. And so it wasn't until paper notes came out. Those original ones were gold certificates or silver. I think there were some silver, but mostly gold certificates that said, take this to a bank and we'll give you a 1 ounce round of coin. Realize gold was at about $20 up till 1933. Roosevelt then confiscated all the gold from the American people and then raised the price of gold to about $30. In essence, he had a 50% increase in what the government had as holdings. And that was the first real change in gold for 100 plus years. And now look at where it is. So it tells you that we are seeing a true change. Where it will go, that's an unknown. because I don't think it can last forever. Is it a house of cards? It could be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this experiment will work and we don't need money. We just need strong GDP, which we are, not having right now, but the economy is definitely ticking up. And so we're getting new highs in U.S. equities. We are seeing a jump in yields for 10-year notes, even though Powell has maintained that we're going to keep interest rates where they are. So they're betting against the Fed. And that's something that I haven't seen in years, where they're going opposite of what the policy is because they believe that their policy will change whether or not they want to admit it.
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway. Eventually, they're going to be forced to change, and things are going to change. So you're either with it or not. Hey, Gary, just tell us how we subscribe to your publication.
TheGoldForecast.com. That is our website. We have a YouTube channel, The Gold Forecast, where you can view approximately 2,000 videos beginning in 2010. We do 5 a week. We've been doing it for 10 years. So we've got an excessive library where you can go back at any point in time and see what our views were.
All right, excellent. And it's must reading for sure. Hey, got a question for Gary or a comment where you think this is all is heading? We'd like to know your opinion. Send us an email to kl@kerrylutz.com. We'll forward it off to Gary for an answer for you. And of course, sign up for our free newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Gary, we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much.
A pleasure being with you, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.